Bertrand, the same sort of perspective to you. I'm very interested to hear how your conglomerate of institutions within the sort of the British DFI world and DFID are supporting some of your work, and do you have a different view today and a different approach in respect to leverage that you probably would have had as an institution 3-5 years ago?
Thanks for that, Hubert. I will answer the question, but I quite like how you introduced the people here, the sort of innovative aspects that we have to bring in order to catalyze private sector investment in infrastructure in sub-Saharan Africa. We think we're an innovative tool to a certain degree, and without any pretensions, don't get me wrong. Who would put $30 million to dig holes in Ethiopia in geothermal in Korbeti? Who would go and develop a 30 megawatt solar plant in Chad with Aldwych? Who would go and develop a 40 megawatt plant in Guinea-Conakry with Aldwych? So Infraco does that. Infraco is part of a group, and I'll come back to your leverage question when I talk about the group. But basically, we think we're quite innovative in the sense that I heard this morning, smart money is early money. We are that. So we're here to alleviate poverty in sub-Saharan Africa by catalyzing private sector investment in sub-Saharan Africa in infrastructure projects. And I believe there's only a handful of us. We are not big numbers, we are not big tickets, but we are pure risk. Because the project may never happen. When we put our 5 million in developing such or such project, it may take 20 years. The thing is, we'll hang on there. That's our core mission. And in addition to that, we scratch our head a bit. And for instance, we are now embarking into, and this is where I will leverage on the group we belong to, which is the PIDGE, the Private Infrastructure Development Group, same mission as us, but different instruments. So for example, we've got EAIF, Emerging Africa Infrastructure Fund, who provides senior debt. We've got Garanco, who are all about promoting local currency. And to that degree, and with them, we're currently working on a sub-10 megawatt local currency PPA in Kenya for a solar plant. So we're happy to take the early stage risk on that. We know we're going to be pioneering. The idea is what? Is to catalyze local currency private money to come into this project and hopefully open doors to many more coming, basically. And that's fun. That's also difficult because, you know, as we've heard this morning, there's lots of money. Projects have their difficulties. Government are, I hope there's no officials in the room, are a bit painful at times. Let me put it this way. And we are there to bear that risk, but it's not an easy task. Other thing we bring, I think, which is a little bit outside of the box, or at least our box, is working with renowned developers such as Aldwych, for example, or Berkeley Energy in Korbeti in geothermal. And we have our own internal expertise. So when, a bit like Lida, when she gets application for a grant, we get lots of applications, and the guys are nowhere near any entertainable project at the time they come to us. And especially these days with solar, where every man and his dog thinks he can do solar. That's not true. We're not necessarily after big balance sheet, you know, but we're after sound project fundamentals, and that's critical to us. And this is how we select the projects we get into. And I've lost my train of thoughts now. What was I saying? Let's see the crowd listening. Please help me there.
But you were making some interesting points on the fundamentals and your selection criteria.
I've got it back. Expertise, I was saying, that's what we sort of bring. So through partners we work with, but also internally. We all come from the private project development side of the story. Some of us have seen it all the way to financial close and even through construction. And when we get poor application, we don't reject, we guide. We tell them, we suggest you do this, this and that, and then come back and talk to us. We are not there to be selective, we are there to alleviate poverty in Africa. We all know the need is there, 621 million people without electricity just in the power space. So we want to help by as much as we can. We either do that directly or through our renowned developers we're working with.
If I could ask you honestly, which lens do you typically use to assess your proposals? Because we have many friends and colleagues in the industry who come from the development finance world and then become project developers themselves and realize how difficult it is and how terms are slightly not going in their favor. on the other side of the fence. I mean, is there a way that we need to look at how we view the private sector? I mean, we heard today that perhaps there's a little bit of a misalignment of objectives, or not, as the case may be.
Dare I say not. I think that's why we're here. We need to promote ourselves. I'm sure we are very bad at it because we are just project guys, we're not marketing people, and that's definitely something we're working on. But we're not limited by money. If we find good projects, they'll get money. And therefore, to find good projects, like I was saying, we need thousands, and out of the 1,000, if we get 5, we're having a good year. I'm exaggerating, don't quote me on the numbers, but the length we put is quite, on analyzing and filtering the project, is quite, how can I put it, narrow, because as I said, not many projects have all the fundamentals, and when we go to chat, if the fundamentals are there, and that's the other aspect I wanted to elaborate on through the expertise we bring through our group pitch, is we will enable the environment that will attract private sector. We will make it investor friendly, and we have capacitation money within the pitch group ready to do that alongside the core project development.
Do you have development friendly money? If you're helping to build the capacity
every
development side.
No, every developer, because that's their game, will tell you we are not developer friendly. They want the biggest share of the cake at the minimum risk. And that's what. But this is not a bad thing. This is a healthy negotiation to make a deal happen.
I'm really talking more from the development of the project developer industry.
Yeah, that's what
so that your pipeline, the more rise up and be competitive and meet your standards and criteria over time. Same sort of approach we saw in the venture capital industry, where there was support to help the funds develop. Is there more that can be done potentially to help build the project developer professionalism and industry, or is that not necessarily a priority for future pipeline?
Infraco's mandate is not about that. It's about developing projects and not developing developers, if that's your question. However, to develop projects, you need developed developers or being developed developers, and to that degree we contribute as well. But as I said, how do you develop a developer? I think is by making a project successful with the already developed developers, the renowned ones. I'm not going to name them again, Aldrich being one. And basically these guys set the tone, sets the PPAs, and lead to a form of standardization to follow on. It never happens overnight. You probably need 5 or 10 iterations, depending on the country, the projects, and what have you. But the idea is we fund these guys to build the tracks, so other less developed developers can come behind. But our real mandate project is not about developing developers. I want to say 2 things though, because I guess my time is getting. In terms of facilitating, there's a good website called Infrastructure Consortium for Africa, which lists, there's a fund finder there, which lists what money is available for what project at what stage. And it's quite good. It's pretty generic. I'm sure all the attendants here knows about that stuff. But for the man and a dog who wants to do solar in Central Republic of Africa, that stuff is welcome. The other thing is AFIDA, the Association for Infrastructure Developers in Africa. I think is another good channel, not only because it pushes networking of developers together, but also because it's about advocacy, going to see governments as a group of developers and kind of flexing muscles so we get heard as developers. But it's also about standardizing documentation as much as possible. I think it's a bit of wishful thinking, if you ask me, really. But an effort towards that will help reduce development costs and therefore make project happen, essentially.
Thank you, Betrand.
Doing business in Africa, you can't afford to be without Africa Investor.